Hello, everybody. What the flick? We are here with our review of Doctor Who season, depending on how you count, episode 3, Thin Ice. And it is, of course, the episode with all the ice in it.
So much ice.
I'm William Bibbiani. This is Meredith Placko, and we are here.
It's so good to be back, guys. I know I missed the first two.
We missed you so much. How do you feel about the season so far, now that we've got this sort of fresh start?
I love Bill. Oh my God. Bill is like, she's the companion I've been long waiting for.
Why is that? What's been lacking?
Well, okay, I was not a fan of Amy. Could not stand Amy Pond. She was just too self-aware, too into it, too into herself. The last Clara. Clara's all right. She started off strong, but she was sweet. She was just sweet. She was a good girl Clara. But Bill brings in like what I love about Rose. You know, she's got that like that toughness to her, but she also has like this great like she has heart. She definitely already has heart. Where we're seeing a much more you know, this doctor, Capaldi's doctor he doesn't seem to have a lot of that sympathy. He's not feeling it. We remember that from like the whole flashcard thing.
Yeah, but even in this one, you know, in the smiley face episode, his first thought was destroy. Exactly. And then if it wasn't for Bill's interactions, he would have. And here
we see this again with you know, the child. When the child gets taken under, Bill is horrified, and the doctor is just like, well, it's one life versus, you know, the others we have to save. And
by the end of this episode, they've created a much more interesting dynamic for the doctor and his companion that I think we've seen in a while, which is the idea that I'm not of this world. I don't get to make these decisions. It's your world. You should make this call. And he's done this a couple of times before.
But this is how it should be. Like, I mean, you know, he is the, I don't want to say the tool, but he's like not the savior. But the doctor works at the whim of the people. He loves Earth and Earthlings so much, and all he wants to do is, in his own way, serve them in a way that's almost like penance for his own actions back in...
Perhaps, but you know, I also think about how much of an outsider he was amongst his own people. And here on Earth, he gets to feed his ego. He gets to be better than everyone else. But at the same time, he does get to sort of help guide them. Whereas he felt like he wasn't, like he talked about, he looked into that vortex of time and ran away. You know, here he gets to be smarter than everyone else, but he still has to sort of guide them, and he still gets to find that dynamic, which is great. He talks about, in this episode, you know, Doctor Who goes back through time a lot, and they often manage to avoid many of the stickier elements of humanity's history. Even in previous seasons, they've just managed to just sort of not talk a lot about the history of racism.
Well, and so this got me like right from the get-go, because so Bill's like, hi, you know, pre-Victorian Regency England, I'm black, and you know, slavery, and then they go out and I start seeing like, oh, okay, well there's a black man just walking, there's a black man part of the patrol, and I'm thinking like they're just gonna make that comment, and then we're not gonna have any sort of addressing that there's all these non-white background actors, and then she goes and says, oh, this was more diverse than I thought it was, and that actually caused me to go on a Wikipedia hole of realizing like it was like 1803 or 1807, the Parliament passed a law outlawing the slave trade, and but still slaves were still allowed until 1833 was when slavery was completely eradicated from England. So it's nice to kind of see, like, you know, we have the early 18-teens where this episode takes place, and we start to see that that changeover where black, you know, English black. Let me say black American, black English men and women start to have more of an everyday presence. And I thought that was great. That was great. Wonderful.
It's nice to hear the doctor actually talk about the concept of historical whitewashing. And then at the end, you know, well, we're going to meet this rich guy, and maybe he's an alien or blah, and we're going to work with diplomacy. And then he's the most racist human being we've ever seen. We've seen racist humans on Doctor Who, but often they're racist towards aliens.
Exactly, but this is
just outright horrifying racism, and the doctor is just like, fuck it, punch, and hero. It's just like how nice it is to see heroes in our fiction take a stand against these things and not just say, well, you know, it was a different time, you know, we have to blend in.
No, screw that. Punch. I know.
Punch.
Especially, and I love the whole like dealing with like, oh, well, what if I step on a butterfly and, you know, the whole ramifications. And he's like, no, screw it. We can make changes. We can make changes for the better here.
Well, it's a concept you have to constantly reintroduce every once in a while in Doctor Who. Different companions need different things explained to them. And, you know, the show has been going on for about 50 years. People have different jumping on points. This is a really good jumping on point.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is that the more recent episodes, particularly the last two, have felt way more like Russell T Davies episodes.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this I'm wondering if this is almost like a mission statement now. Maybe we've strayed too far, because they're solid, fun, high concept pieces that feature interactions between the Doctor and their companion that are inherently dramatic but also involve personal growth. And there are consequences for the people around them that we haven't always had and focused on. A small child dies at the beginning of this episode. That child isn't saved.
Yeah, no.
And indeed, the monster that ate that child, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, and the fact that
it's an animal.
Yeah, and they ultimately, you know, Bill ultimately chooses to let it roam free and go free. Like is I think for me that's a great. It's really nice to see that. It's nice to see that moral gray conflict. Not everything's black and white.
Yeah, but in the end, we err on the side of as moral as we possibly can get. The Doctor is in many ways for me has always been an aspirational hero. You know, maybe doesn't always make choices I like, but it's always choices that I couldn't make because he's in a position of near godhood a lot of times throughout this series. And I understand where he's coming from, but for the most part, I can get behind the moral decisions the Doctor makes, and I can say to myself, that's someone I can look up to, and I think that's what we need in our
I feel
heroes.
like we've missed that, though, the last couple of seasons. He hasn't really been that moral beacon at all.
And even if he was, sometimes the show didn't really have the tone. That the tone got, I don't want to say darker, but maybe muddy, I think is a really good way of putting it. It felt, even though there were great episodes, it was really unfocused for the first couple of Capaldi years. It just didn't feel like there was a sure guiding hand in terms of this is exactly what the show is right now, which led to a real mixed bag. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it was not, and it hasn't done Capaldi any favors either.
No, and he was the Doctor I was most excited for when they announced him. So this season, even though while it'll be his last, is, you know, obviously my favorite of his so far, and I'm excited to see where they're going. But I also feel like the last couple of seasons, especially with like Amy and Rory and then Clara, they were always building up to something bigger, which they always do. But I felt like they were too focused on what's coming up next versus in the episode. And like you were saying, these last 3 episodes have felt insular but part of a whole, and they've been good individual stories.
They've been emotional stories in a way we haven't. There's been a lot of good high concept stories, but I didn't necessarily care about the characters in the way that I do in these new episodes, and that's great. What do you think is behind the door?
Missy.
You think it's Missy?
I think it's Missy.
Do you think she's just in jail under there or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really think it's got to be. It's not, you know, it's not going to be a Dalek. It's not going to be a Cyberman. It's got to be something, you know, why else would the Doctor feel the need to protect Earth from this? It's either Missy or the Master. You know, I mean, it's just one and the same. But I'm saying it might actually even be the Master aspect of Missy.
Here's the thing I think of is who would the Doctor make an oath to? That I think I mentioned this before in a previous review, but I haven't talked about it with you. Who would the Doctor make an oath to that would be important for him to keep? And it's pretty much River or the Master. Because the Master is the other last Time Lord. They have something important. They have a really important connection there that goes beyond their hatred for each other. So I'm curious where this is going. And even just the knocking, they clearly want to evoke the Master, but I wonder if that's a misdirect. I don't know.
That's true. It could be.
But last time we thought they're misdirecting us. There's no way Missy is the Master. It's way too obvious. It's Missy.
Yeah, it's Missy. So.
You're right. It's probably Missy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think too they've realized doing the whole red herring thing. It hasn't worked out in their favors in the last. You know, a couple of seasons, it's like
we have too much time to speculate, and we are too geeky about it.
Exactly. So just give us what we want. So,
Anything we want to see from Capaldi this season before he goes that we haven't seen yet?
I really want to see. Well, I just want to see him stop being so dang bitter. I want to see him find his heart's.
You know he's going to do that and then die immediately, right? Like that's got to be.
But see, they expect it, and but I want that. I want just give me that. You know, and I want to see. God, we've gone through so much. It's almost like at this point, what can we do that's new? You know, this is kind of why the series will go off air for a couple of years and reboot itself. You know, I'd also like to see you know, I just want to see a fresh start. I think I do feel when Capaldi finally goes and when we regenerate, I just want to see something completely new. You know.
I would love to see, like, I mean, a lot of people talked about the diversity of casting, which would be great, but I also want a diversity of character. And I feel like Capaldi was crankier, but we've still kind of had very similar doctors. Like, we haven't had, like, you look at, like, the difference between even the third and fourth doctors. They're really different people. We had a doctor, who was the doctor who was a total asshole? The rainbow colors.
Oh, with the celery stalk.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Yeah, God, why am I blanking?
We had a couple of asshole doctors.
No, but yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
What if we had a coward doctor?
Is it the fourth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're sorry. Someone's putting a comment in YouTube right now. Thank you so much. Just scroll down, and they're getting this right for all of us, and you're awesome.
I know.
Thank you, fans. You're great.
I can at least use I'm still on high-end pain medication, so that's why I'm all out of it.
That's why you weren't here for the last couple?
Yeah, that's actually why, because I had crazy surgery. So.
Okay, well, thank you for coming back. We're good.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would like to see a cowardly doctor. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, just something dramatically different, you know? Or let's have another war doctor. We never really got to hang out with the war doctor. What would that be like?
What if though?
Right?
Like, what if that's what's behind the door? Obviously, it's obviously a different actor, but what if we saw another aspect of the war doctor?
What if it's another version of the doctor?
That's the only other person that you know. When you're saying he would make an oath to River or the Master, the only person he would keep an oath to would be himself.
Like another version of himself, and just out pops Matt Smith.
Right?
It's just like, oh God, oh,
I know,
worst century ever. That'd be cool.
But we know Tennant's doctor is living out in another.
Will we ever get back to that, do you think?
I want to.
You want to see the alternate dimension where him and Rose are just...
Tennant, I just want to believe they're having a good life.
I think the fact that we haven't seen them yet means they are. Because if we saw them again, it would mean something dramatic is happening.
I know,
Wouldn't that suck?
And I love that. I mean, Tennant Rose 5 ever.
5 ever?
5 ever.
That's how much.
Yeah,
That's great. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be back next week. Hopefully Alonso will be here as well for a more spirited conversation about Doctor Who. We're really digging this season so far. It's been real market improvement from the last couple seasons, which have been enjoying but very critical of, I think.
Yeah.
So hope you like it too, and stick around for more stuff.